Dallas nights hold heat like a grudge, slow and heavy, even after the sun slips off the skyline. I stood in an alley off Illinois Avenue behind a row of tired brick duplexes, arms crossed tight like I was hugging myself, watching Jax, my hitter, plant a boot on Marcus's shoulder to keep him still. Cicadas screamed from the trees like broken alarms. Somewhere a freight train moaned. The air smelt like radiator steam, gun oil, and old regrets. Marcus's cheek was pressed to the busted pavement, his breath rasped, ragged, wet. His hoodie was gray at the store, darker now. He'd been running tabs in my world for years, stacking IOUs like sandbags against a flood he never planned to survive. $10 million gone, not lost, spent on shine, lies, and one last wrong move. "Dash," Jack said, voice flat, eyes on me, asking and loyal at the same time. The muzzle of his Glock hovered an inch above Marcus's temple, heat wavering the night around it. I didn't blink. I couldn't. Power is simple until a child is involved. Marcus coughed, spit red, and twisted enough to find me. He had those restless eyes, always counting doors, exits, debts. He reached for his pocket, slow, palms open so Jax wouldn't paint the alley with finality. He pulled out a phone, cracked screen lit with a lock screen photo, a toddler in a little dino print t-shirt, mouth open and a laugh, 2 plastic dinosaurs mid-battle in his fists. Marcus's thumb shook when he tapped the picture. "Backseat," he whispered. "Don't let him see me like this." I felt the first slip in my armor, a hairline crack I hated and needed. Men die in Dallas. Money disappears. Respect is rented weekly. But a child in a car at midnight is a line even the devil looks at twice. I angled my body to block the alley's mouth from the street and nodded at Jax without looking at him. He knew what that meant. Marcus tried one more time, gathering words like loose coins. "Raise my son better than me," he breathed, the sentence falling apart as it left him. For a second, I saw him differently, not a ledger line or a loose end, just a father too late to be better, begging the only person left who could pay a bill like that. The crack in me widened. The shot was a white door slamming in the dark. Muzzle flash lit the bricks, stuttered shadows across my face. Cicadas cut off like the night held its breath. Then they came back, louder. Jack stepped away, gun low, checking both ends of the alley in clean arcs. "It's done," he said, voice flat, but softer now, like the street asked us both a question neither one of us could answer. I moved. Gravel popped under my heels as I walked to the corner where we parked. The sedan looked like any other car sleeping through bad news. I opened the rear door and the dome light blinked on, warm and small like a prayer somebody whispered once and forgot. The boy was strapped in his car seat, head tilted, curls stuck to his forehead, those 2 plastic dinosaurs resting on his lap like tired guards. He blinked at the light, looked up at me, and the world split into 2 rooms, the one where I kept power and the one where I kept him safe. "Hey, baby," I said, voice lowering like the night asked for quiet. He reached out small and sure, fingers wrapping my gold chain, tugging it just enough to anchor me. His lip trembled, not from fear, just from being 3 and awake past bedtime. I asked him hungry. He nodded a little, attention sliding back to the toys. "Okay," I said, "okay." Behind me, Jack stopped at the alley mouth, watching the street. He didn't look toward the car, didn't crowd the moment. I unclipped the buckles, reached under his arms, and lifted the boy against my shoulder. He smelled like crayons and car seat fabric warm from Texas night. He tucked his small face into my neck and breathed like I was a thing he knew. Something old inside me remembered how to hold life without shaking. "Police will be here in 5, Jack said low. "We ghosting?" "Yeah, but not fast." I looked back down the alley. Marcus lay quiet, finally out of hustle. I tried to feel victory and came up with silence. We rolled slow, without lights, cutting through late-night Dallas, empty bus stops, shuttered taquerias, a straight dog who knew the map better than we did. The boy fell asleep again, mouth open, small snores like promises. I drove one-handed, checking the rear view as if it could confess the future. Jax rode shotgun, scanning, the rifle bag by his knees. We didn't speak until the city smoothed into the South Side's familiar teeth. At my place, I carried the boy inside and set him on the couch. He woke enough to find a dinosaur and put it in my palm like a job assignment. "Watch," he said. Tiny command with big trust. "I got you," I answered. The words surprised me with how easy they fit. The night held its breath. The sun hadn't even come up when I realized the whole apartment smelled like gunpowder ghosts and cheap pine saw. I barely slept, kept hearing Marcus's last words, looping like a scratched record. "Raise my son better than me." I'd spent half the night pacing from the couch where Kaiden slept to the window where the blind stuck halfway open, checking the street below for headlights I didn't recognize. Jax had left right before dawn, said he'd handle the cleanup. That was Jax speak for bribing the wrong people to look the other way and moving the body to the right zip code so the cops wouldn't tie it to us. I didn't ask questions. I just locked the door behind him and listened to Kaiden's little boy snores, steady, like the world wasn't about to break in. I brewed coffee strong enough to burn holes in my throat. My hand shook, pouring sugar. Not from fear, at least that's what I told myself, but from the weight of a promise I never planned to make. The boy woke up early, rubbing his eyes, dragging one dino by the tail. "Morning, baby," I said, trying to sound like mornings meant something good. He blinked at me for a long second, then asked, "Where's Daddy?" My stomach dropped so fast, I had to grip the counter. "He had to go," I said carefully, stirring his Cheerio before he could see my eyes water. He seemed satisfied enough to start dunking the other dinosaur in the milk like it was swimming. Kids have a mercy adults forget. Around 9, a knock rattled the door. 3 polite taps that somehow felt more dangerous than gunshots. I opened to find a woman in a navy polo with a state badge clipped to her collar. "Child Protective Services," she introduced herself, voice even, eyes sharper than they looked. "We received a call about a minor in your care after a late-night disturbance." Disturbance. That's a neat word for a murder 2 blocks over. I forced a smile. "He's safe. Just had a rough night." "Come in." Kaiden peeked from behind the couch, T-Rex clutched like a shield. The worker crouched to his level, softened her tone. "Hey, buddy, I'm Miss Ellis. You okay here?" He nodded solemnly and showed her the dino's teeth. She smiled, but kept scanning my walls like they held the real answers. Miss Ellis asked for paperwork, birth certificate, proof of guardianship, emergency contacts. I had none of that. "His father gave verbal consent," I muttered, realizing how bad that sounded. Her brow furrowed, but she only said, "We'll follow up." Before leaving, she added, "If you need help, financial, legal, we can guide you, but we do background checks on all guardians." Her eyes lingered on my arms, tattoos peeking under the sleeve of my tee, then on the double locks bolted to the door. She left a card that felt heavier than the gun hidden in the bread box. Once the door closed, I sagged against it. Jax returned near noon, carrying 2 brown grocery bags and a box of pull-ups. "Thought the kid could use these," he said, dropping them on the counter. His kindness always came wrapped in awkward silence. "CPS came," I told him. He cursed under his breath. "They find anything?" "Just me," I replied, pouring another coffee I didn't need. He grunted, started checking windows like we'd been robbed. "We'll get papers forged," he offered. "Been done before." I stared at Kaiden drawing dinosaurs on scrap paper, thinking how wrong it felt to start his new life with a fake document. That afternoon, I drove Kaiden to a neighborhood daycare to register him. The receptionist, a plump lady with honey brown skin and big hoop earrings, handed me a form that asked for mother. I froze, pen hovering above the line. Finally wrote guardian. The lady noticed but didn't comment. Instead, she said, "Cute boy. Kids like him make us better people." On the way out, Kaiden clutched my hand and asked if the playground dinosaurs were his too. I told him maybe tomorrow, because today everything already felt borrowed. Evening crept in with the Dallas heat still rising off the blacktop. I counted cash at the kitchen table. $500,000 in rubber banded stacks, not even close to the 10 mil Marcus blew through. My ledger sat open beside it. Columns of names and debts, red ink slashing across too many pages. I caught Kaiden watching from the hallway, thumb in his mouth. "Bedtime," I said gently. He patted over and asked, "Do dinosaurs sleep in beds or caves?" I replied, smiling despite myself, "Caves." "We got caves?" he asked seriously. "We got a couch." I laughed softly. He nodded like that was good enough and went to lay down. I stayed at the table long after Jax left for the night shift on the corner. The house finally quiet, I opened Marcus's cracked phone again. Scrolled through pictures, Kaiden at a park slide, birthday cake with 3 candles, a selfie of Marcus in that same gray hoodie I last saw stained dark. I wondered if Marcus ever tried to change, or if 10 million made that impossible. Guilt snuck up on me, ugly and uninvited. So I shut the phone off and stared at the streetlight glow leaking through the blinds. Somewhere in the city, sirens wailed like distant wolves. I whispered to the silence, not sure if it was prayer. "I'll keep him safe. Better than you. I'll try." Morning slid across my blinds like a slow apology, turning the room from charcoal to ash. I lay still and listened to the small sounds that tell you whether a day is going to break you or hand you a second chance. A truck coughing to life, a neighbor's kettle whining, the click of a hallway door. Kaiden breathed soft on the couch, curled around 2 plastic dinosaurs like he'd known him since birth. I sat up, spine popping, and told myself to move gentle. You don't wake a child with fear on your face. I made coffee dark enough to disguise how my hand shook, set the blue bowl on the table, and put his spoon where a 3-year-old could claim it like a crown. He woke with a yawn that swallowed half his face and a seriousness that didn't belong to someone with feet that small. "Blue bowl?" he asked, rubbing one eye. I slid it toward him. The cereal cracked like little pebbles when the milk hit. He lifted the T-Rex and made it slurp, then glanced at the window and whispered, "Rawr," toward the street, just in case. "We're seeing a new place today. Kids, toys, slides." He measured the idea like a gambler looking at a table he didn't trust yet. "They got caves?" "They got forts," I said. "Forts are caves that may bail." He nodded, satisfied, and fed his other dinosaur a soggy loop that dripped milk down its tail. I dressed him in the cleanest dino shirt from Marcus's bag and wiped his cheeks with the bottom of mine. In the bathroom mirror, my face looked like I boxed the night, and the night won on points. I braided my edges back and put on the jacket that said, "I was the weather, not the forecast." We stepped into the hall and the building's breath met us. Fried food, laundry steam, bleach. My block always smells like somebody is making it and somebody is trying to disappear at the same time. I buckled him into the back seat, clipped the dinosaurs into the belt with them like deputies, and pulled on to Illinois Ave with the radio whispering a song that remembered when love was louder than debt. Traffic on I-35 was a slow sermon. Cones lined up like orange ushers, waving us past yesterday's wreck. I stole rearview glances and caught him kicking air to a rhythm only he knew. "What's your name, baby?" I asked, like I hadn't already learned it with my heartbeat. Kadon, he said carefully, like folks sometimes dropped letters or forgot to hold the middle. I like it, I said. Feels strong in the mouth. He lifted both dinosaurs and made them nod like witnesses. You like me? I asked, smiling, though my voice sounded too thin. He studied me in the mirror, decided something private, and nodded once. I swallowed a thank you big enough to drown a city. The daycare hid behind a grocery store, small brick building, mural of animals that smiled with too many teeth. Inside smelt like crayons, disinfectant, and patience. A receptionist slid a clipboard toward me. Guardian name. I wrote India in neat letters, steady enough to fool a judge if a judge squinted. Emergency contact. I wrote Jax and felt my own hypocrisy tap me on the shoulder. A teacher with honey brown skin and kind eyes came down to Kadon's level. You brought friends, she said, touching one plastic tail. He nodded solemn like a mayor approving a parade permit. We keep our little safe here, she told me, like she was handing me a promise wrapped in bubble wrap. I nodded back because I wanted to believe her more than I wanted to breathe. Leaving him hurt in a clean way, like a doctor setting a bone. He didn't cry. He lifted his chin, lifted one hand, and gave me a goodbye that felt sturdy enough to stand on. In the parking lot, I leaned on the warm hood, counted to 60 twice, then got to work. I moved the stash from a spot that wasn't safe to another spot that was only safe if a miracle watched it. I cleaned my glove box of names and numbers and slid one quiet burner into my pocket. Rico's name flashed my screen twice. I let it die both times. A message from Big Laro landed without punctuation. Ledger says 10. I put the phone face down and stared at the sky until it stopped pretending to be a ceiling. Miss Ellis called from a blocked number, like Mercy does when it's not sure it's welcome. Off the clock, coffee, no badge. I'll explain what you need to keep him. Every yes pulls a string tied to my throat, but I said yes anyway. The strip mall cafe smelled like ambition and cinnamon. She wore the same navy polo, but the badge stayed buried. Emergency custody, she said, drawing boxes on a napkin. Affidavit, physician, background, home visit. It's not impossible, but it isn't pretend. I kept my face clean. Background? Yes. Her voice didn't flinch. If there's trouble in it, be the first one to say so. Judges hate surprises. Kids pay for grown folks' secrets. I nodded, because my secrets were already sending invoices. She slipped me a list, the kind of list that turns women into case numbers if they blink too long. If you want help, call me. On the clock, I'm cautious. Off the clock, I'm human. She sipped her coffee, studied my jacket, my hands, the way I kept one heel angled toward the door. She likes dinosaurs, she said softly. Kids who love hard things that went extinct usually learned early that love needs armor. I didn't say anything because the truth felt like glass in my mouth. When we left, the daylight was too honest. I hugged the list like it was a child. She walked the other way and did not look back. I liked her for that. Pickup time came with squeals ricocheting off cinder block. Through the glass, I saw him running, fighting the urge to sprint because somewhere a new rule had whispered, walk inside. I broke it for him and scooped him up before he could stop being 3. He smelled like graham crackers and victory. The teacher handed me a zip bag with a drawing inside. 2 lopsided dinosaurs beneath the sun shaped like a fried egg. Across the top, letters walking like little knees. INDIYA. She said, that's your name. She smiled. He spelled it himself. My throat burned the sweet kind of burn. It is, I said. Kadon tapped the paper with his finger. This one is you, he declared, pointing to a T-Rex. Rawr. Jax huffed a laugh he didn't want, then cut his eyes at me. We good? I nodded. For now. After bath time, we built a blanket for it and called it the cave because caves matter to 3-year-olds and to women who once believed they were made of stone. He decreed you had to roar to enter and appointed the Stegosaurus as guard. I stuck Miss Ellis's checklist on the fridge with a magnet shaped like Texas and added boxes she didn't draw. Clean routes, quiet cars, soft words, no lies. When he fell asleep in the cave with a dinosaur tucked under his chin, I sat on the floor outside and read the list again until the words stopped trying to run. On the table, my ledger waited with its red slashes. On the couch, a life breathed slow, daring me to be better than the book. Close to midnight, the city thinned to dogs, sirens, and bass you could feel but you couldn't prove. I checked locks, slid a paring knife under the cushion where I planned to doze, and set my phone to vibrate in case Mercy called. I folded daycare papers beside the checklist, wrote Kadon in black marker across a plastic bin for his things, and felt something inside me align by degrees. I powered Marcus's cracked phone, watched a short video of him cutting apples for the boy, and closed it before the ache leaked out my eyes. I knelt by the couch and rested my hand on the blanket's edge. I didn't have a prayer yet, but I had a promise. I will raise him better, I said to the dark. I will raise him better than you. I will try. The Trinity River lot looked like the city forgot it on purpose. Patches of dirt pretending to be pavement, weeds leaning in like they were eavesdropping, and long shadows from the bridge rib-caging the sky. Nights out there always felt like somebody's empty confession. I parked with my headlights killed and the music off, the engine ticking loud in the quiet. Jax was already there, hood up on the Charger, leaning like gravity had a favorite. Rico rolled in late on purpose, bass walking arrogant, a gold tooth glinting like a cheap sunrise. 3 more cars, nose to nose, formed a half circle, doors half open so the men could lean like they owned air. I stepped out last because power works better when it doesn't rush. My jacket caught the wind, my braids settled. The lot smelled like rubber and river and a fight, not brave enough to announce itself yet. "You slippin', D," Rico said. He wanted to provoke something he could call proof. Phones cold, corners cold, buyers asking why the queen stopped wearing her crown. I studied him a full count of 5. "Crowns are just head cuffs," I said. "I don't wear what don't fit." A few chuckled, more didn't. Jack flicked a look across the line and let the silence get tight. He didn't need to talk to be a sentence. Behind them, Dallas glowed dull, the skyline a row of teeth behind a closed lip. I pictured Kaidon asleep at home, one dinosaur under his chin like a badge. I pictured Miss Ellis's list on my fridge, boxes empty but patient. The 2 pictures didn't match, and life is hard when your heart keeps trying to display split screen. Big Lauro chose that moment to arrive like a judgment, white Cadillac rolling slow as an altar cart, windows black enough to make you think sin had a favorite color. He didn't step out at first. He let the truck idle, heavy and soft, the way rich men purr when they want you to know they feed on quiet. When he did emerge, he wore a shirt that cost more than a man's rent and a watch that could blind a small country. "My evening," he greeted, smile thin enough to slice bread. "Queen," he nodded at me like he had just invented politeness. "Where's my 10? Conversation stopped walking and knelt. "Marcus died empty," I said, even as a voice inside me whispered he didn't. He left a boy and a sentence I can't forget. "Debt don't die," Laura replied softly. "It changes caregivers." He glanced up the riverbank toward crickets sawing the night into strips. "You took in his son, they say. Beautiful thing." He spread his hands like he was blessing a ceremony. Something in me bristled so hard my skin felt tight. "You worry about money, I'll worry about people." His eyes warmed without heating. Money is people. It comes with faces if you love it enough. The men behind him laughed too eagerly, relieved for a cue. I moved closer until my shadow stepped on his shoes. I told him, "You get nothing from that child. Not pressure, not leverage, not a whisper." He held my gaze with the easy patience of a crocodile mid-current. "Leverage is just persuasion with good manners. You can keep your kindness, I'll keep my math." Jack shifted, the lot measuring whether it felt like a cemetery or a courtroom. I could feel the night deciding what it wanted to be. I pictured Kaidon's drawing on my door.
2 lopsided dinosaurs under a fried egg sun with my name in cricket letters. I kept my face calm, my hands empty, my voice low enough to make men lean forward. I said, "Try me, please." Laro's smile receded a millimeter. "Not tonight," he decided, as if charity fit him. Deadlines are romantic. I prefer schedules. He left with the same grace as a storm going around a city because it wants you alive when it returns. Engines started, boys who depended on me to be still, pretending they didn't notice I was flesh. When it was just me and Jax, the river sighed loud and old. He closed the Charger's hood and leaned both palm heels on the fender. "We can't keep running 2 plays," he said. He didn't look at me because truth is easier in profile. "We can," I said, but my voice did a thing I hated. "We can until the ground moves." He nodded, like he didn't want to. "Ground's already moving," he said. "You heard it." We drove separate but close, back toward the blocks we'd memorized long ago. Red lights stretched time thin enough to see through. At one stop, I glanced in the back seat by habit and nearly said his name out loud. Habit is a loud liar. I pictured the daycare teacher's warm eyes, Miss Ellis's careful napkin diagram, Mother May's church I kept orbiting without landing. I pulled to the curb a block from home and cut the engine. The street smelled like someone's late rice and someone else's tired weed. Parked behind me and stayed in his car, giving me a disc of quiet I didn't deserve. I sat a minute and let my breath catch up with me. The night isn't generous. You have to steal calm from it. In the apartment, I checked locks, then checked the little blanket fort we left standing, then checked the fridge for something honest to do with my hands. I found grapes and washed them slow. Movement from the couch. Kaidan half awoke, turned over, tucked the dinosaur under his chin and a thumb into his mouth. I watched his chest rise and fall and felt an ache in my ribs like the city was learning how to hug. The phone buzzed, a text from Rico, "Deal's thirsty." I pocketed it behind a wall of "not now." Another buzz, Miss Ellis, confirming home visit Friday 10 a.m. "You'll do fine." Her confidence arrived like a coat in air conditioning. I didn't own anything that fit as kind as those 4 words. I stepped into the bathroom and faced the mirror until my face stopped trying to be a mask and started just being mine. Took the jacket off, let my shoulders drop, turned the water on and watched steam crown the room. You spend years building a legend, then one kid whispers a different future and your legend looks like cardboard painted silver. I thought about the ledger, numbers red enough to call a paramedic, thought about the Escalade's hum, a threat, idling, not yet choosing gear. Thought about the daycare drawing where a child made me the T-Rex, like strength could be both sharp and gentle. I pressed my palms to the sink, closed my eyes, and told the empty room words that weren't quite prayer, but weren't far. Choose me for better, just once. Choose me for better. Next morning started with boots in the hallway and voices that operated like knives. I opened the pee hole and saw prayers I didn't plan to say. 2 men I didn't know, baseball caps low, backpacks the wrong shape. They weren't mine. I texted Jax one word, buzzards. He replied with a red dot and 3 minutes. I put my ear to the fort and heard small sleep. The men talked softly about apartment numbers like they were math problems, like you could calculate a life with columns and a bag. The elevator dinged, their shoulders relaxed, they turned away. Jax's Charger rolled up outside, casual as noon. The men watched, measured, decided the day wasn't right. Predators love weather too. When the hallway quieted, my knees did the opposite. Later, after cereal and a game where a stegosaurus guarded the couch from river sharks, I took him with me to the laundromat because doing something simple and clean felt like winning a small war. He sat on the folding table edge, kicking little sneakered feet, letting the dryer's glass door spin his reflection into circles. A woman with a laugh like summer said, "He's handsome. You his mama?" I opened my mouth to say no and found the word stuck. She patted my arm like that answered something anyway. "You take care of him nice," she added. "It shows." When we left, he yawned huge and leaned his head on my shoulder, and the street looked less like a maze. Evening again. Always again. I set him in his car seat for a short ride because sometimes kids fall asleep faster when the city rocks them. At a red light, a squad car screamed past, lights throwing red and blue graffiti across the windshield. He pointed and whispered, "Bad guys running." My throat went tight. I said, "They always run, but we don't." He considered that, then pressed both dinosaurs to the glass like they were watching the chase. I watched the reflection of my eyes in the windshield. Woman, fighter, liar, guardian, and wondered which one I'd let drive tomorrow. When we got home, Rico was waiting on the steps, shoulders loud with disrespect. He stepped into my personal air like a custom. "We hungry out here," he said. "You soft right now, D. The city can smell it." I looked at his mouth, not his eyes. "Hunger don't make wolves brave," I said. "It makes them sloppy." He smirked, tilted his head toward the street like backup lived there. I kept my voice level. "You want to eat? You eat by my rules, or you starve somewhere pretty." He took a breath like he was about to prove something. Jack slid from the shadows behind him, not touching, just adjusting the idea of consequences. He held his hands out like a man who suddenly remembered today wasn't the day to be a myth. "I hear you," he said, tone full of lie, and left a promise of trouble on the concrete like a cigarette butt. I locked the door with 2 turns and a whisper, set Kaidan on the rug with blocks and dinosaurs, and watched him build a crooked fort that would have survived better than most businesses I knew. He looked up. "This could cave," he announced. "Only brave people come in. And snacks." "I'm brave. I got snacks." "Then you can come," he permitted magnanimously, and my heart, traitor that it is, tried to clap. I sat cross-legged on the floor and let him hand me jobs. Guard this, roar at that, be the mountain. I was very good at being the mountain. I've been practicing for years. When he fell asleep early, I sat beside the fort and scrolled my phone to Miss Ellis's number, not calling, just holding it like a handle if the night tried to pull me under. I typed a message and erased it, typed another and erased that too. Finally sent, "What happens if a guardian has a past?" The dots appeared, then went away, then came back. Her reply, "Past is context, safety is currency, judges buy what keeps children whole." I exhaled a breath I'd been holding since I was 19. The window reflected me faint and stubborn. Somewhere, the river carried other people's secrets under the bridge like coins. If you're still listening, type "protect" in the comments if you would choose the child over the streets, no matter the cost.
Dallas heat doesn't quit after dark. It just trades sunlight for steam that crawls out the pavement. I'd been pacing my living room rug so long the pattern looked tired. Kaidan had finally knocked out inside the little blanket cave we built together, his 2 dinosaurs lined up like sentries at the entrance. The fan clicked each rotation, like it was keeping score. I should have felt safer than in the street, but safety's a rumor when men believe they still own pieces of you. Jax texted, "LaRose sniffing around Oak Cliff, says Ledger don't close." I thumbed back, "Let him sniff, I don't know breath." But my chest still got tight. I shut the curtains and sat at the table with Marcus's cracked phone in one palm and my open ledger in the other. 10 million in red ink looked like blood pressure warning. The pictures on his phone looked like an argument God was having with me. The boy on a slide, the boy with cake, the boy asleep in the back seat the night his father bled out. A knock came, slow, deliberate, like someone who never rushes because they're sure you'll open. I peeped first. Big LaRoe himself on my porch under the porch light halo, white Escalade idling at the curb, 2 silhouettes inside it, shifting like they carried iron under linen. I cracked the door, but kept the chain. "Queen," he said smoothly, smile so thin it barely counted as flesh. "Evening visit. We talk inside or out?" "Out," I answered. He leaned on the railing, studying my front door like it might confess. He began, as if reading a eulogy he practiced in the mirror. Marcus had style, but no discipline. He left this ledger behind, 10 mil still breathing. Debt don't die just 'cause its host got sloppy. I kept my voice flat. He died empty. LaRoe's gaze slid to the crayon drawing taped beside my doorbell. 2 dinosaurs under a yellow blob of sun, the letters of my name crawling across the top. "He didn't die empty," LaRoe said softly. "He left leverage. Cute kid." I stepped so my shadow covered the drawing. "Not leverage, not yours, not ever." His smile stayed, but the warmth left his eyes. Persuasion's just leverage with good manners, he murmured. For a long breath, neither of us moved. The Escalade's engine hummed like a patient threat. A breeze lifted one braid across my cheek and dropped it again. That was the only soft thing between us. Finally, he chuckled, a sound with no real humor in it. No rush, Queen. Schedules over deadlines, keeps ulcers away. He tipped 2 fingers off his temple in mock salute, slid back into the truck and rolled off as quiet as he'd come. I closed the door, double-locked it, then triple-checked the windows. My stomach had the sour edge of adrenaline leaving too slow. Kaidan stirred inside the fort, mumbled something about cave monsters and rolled over hugging the T-Rex by the tail. I crouched next to him until his breathing evened again. Sometimes guarding a child is just proving to yourself you can still stand between innocence and whatever hunts it. The next day started heavy. I dropped Kaidan at daycare. He insisted both dinosaurs ride in the cubby with him. Then met Jax for coffee in a strip mall spot that smelt like fried batter trying to pass for breakfast. LaRoe's testing fences, Jax said. I saw, I replied. He stirred sugar he didn't need, eyes on the street. We could disappear. Houston, maybe Atlanta, start new names. I can't disappear. Kids need roots. Even weeds hold the dirt. He smirked sideways. That's new gospel for you. I ignored the jab. By evening, I'd swapped the stash house keys for new ones, rerouted 2 drop phones to numbers nobody had, and paid a neighbor $50 to say nothing if strangers asked who lived in 2B. When Kaidan came home with paint on his sleeves and a paper crown on his head, the air felt almost human again. We ate cheap spaghetti at the table while cartoons hummed in the background. He asked if dinosaurs had moms that worked nights. I told him some did, some hunted while their babies slept. He accepted that as science and kept twirling noodles until one slipped off the fork and landed on his T-Rex. He laughed so hard I had to laugh too. Just after midnight, the street lights blinked twice, an old sign that someone cut power on the block for a reason. Jax texted one word, movement. I scooped Kaidan from the couch without waking him, slid the pistol from the bread box and sat on the floor behind the couch with his head on my shoulder. The hallway stayed quiet, but my post didn't. I waited 30 long minutes before a distant car engine coughed to life and faded. Sometimes survival is measured in stillness you don't want but can't afford to break. The morning paper would call the overnight power hiccup a technical glitch. Folks like me know glitches rarely drive tinted SUVs. I made a silent note to ask Miss Ellis if her home visit schedule could be pushed up. I wanted the paperwork rolling before LaRoe tried another doorstep sermon. As I packed Kaidan's lunch, PB and J cut in triangles because squares made him frown. I caught myself humming a church song my grandma used to play low on Saturdays. The sound startled me enough to stop mid-note. Funny how mercy hides in muscle memory. That weekend, I took Kaidan to the flea market for sneakers that fit and let him pick a plastic triceratops with a chipped horn. A woman selling snow cones squinted at me and asked me, "That your boy? Got your eyes?" I opened my mouth to correct her and didn't. Sometimes a lie that keeps a child safe feels less like sin and more like duty. On the drive home, he fell asleep sticky-fingered, forehead against the window, toy clutched to his chest. I caught our reflection in the glass, a tired woman and a sleeping child, looking almost like family, and drove slower than usual just to keep that picture a little longer. That night, the Escalade cruised by once, headlights sweeping my curtains like a slow accusation. I stood at the window unseen and didn't move till the hum faded. Then I wrote a single line across the bottom of my ledger in red, "Some debts can't be paid in cash." I closed the book, turned off the light, and sat beside Kaidan's fort again, tracing the outline of the paper dinosaurs he'd taped to the blanket wall. They were crooked and brave and determined to roar even in silence. I figured that made 3 of us. The morning Miss Ellis was supposed to come for the home visit, I woke before the streetlights clicked off. Dawn dragged itself slow over Dallas, pink edges on concrete that didn't deserve soft colors. I scrubbed the apartment till the bleach smell made my eyes sting. Couch cushions flipped, cereal crumbs vacuumed, dinosaurs lined like soldiers on the coffee table. Kaidon helped by pushing his toy dump truck around like it was hauling dust. "We gotta make it shine," I told him. "Shine so bright they need shades," he added solemnly. "Kids understand inspection better than they should." Jack stopped by with 2 bags of groceries to make the fridge look like stability. He set them down, then hovered near the door, not wanting state eyes to memorize his face. "You sure about letting CPS inside your walls?" he asked. "Got no choice," I said. "Paper don't sign itself." He nodded, tapped the fridge magnet that held Miss Ellis's checklist, and left before the first knock came. Miss Ellis arrived at 10 on the dot, wearing the same navy polo, but with a softer smile. She crouched to greet Kaidon first. Smart move. He offered her the blue stegosaurus to protect her clipboard, which made her laugh. She walked through slow, checked outlets, checked fridge, checked bathroom door latch, asked where he'd sleep. I showed her the blanket fort with a sheet for privacy. She raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Kids need a place to dream," she said. That line stuck to me like a sticker I didn't want to peel off. We sat at the table going through forms, emergency custody affidavit, medical consent, background disclosure. Each signature felt heavier than the last. Ink can weigh more than lead when the words above it are about a child. She said, "Background check will flag anything unresolved." I kept my expression still. I admitted, "It'll flag some things." She replied, "Past is context. Safety is currency." For a second, I thought I heard the echo of her late-night text message and believed her. After she left, Kaidon and I walked 2 blocks to the corner store to buy juice boxes as a tiny celebration. On the way back, we passed a church with a sandwich board sign that read, "No weapon formed," in fading white paint. He stopped to sound out the letters he recognized. "That say no dinosaurs?" he asked. "Close enough," I told him and squeezed his small hand. Sometimes faith starts as a joke a kid doesn't know he's telling. That afternoon, the call came, a clerk from the family court giving me a date for the emergency guardianship hearing, 2 weeks out, downtown. My stomach flipped twice. Paperwork was one thing. A courtroom meant answering the people whose job was to find the cracks you hide. I wrote the date in block letters on the calendar beside the fridge and stuck the dinosaur sticker Kaidon had given me next to it like a talisman. Jack showed up that night with 2 folders. One legit, from a lawyer friend who owed him a favor. One forged, with cleaner pages than my past deserved. "Keep the real one up front, fake one in the back, just in case," he advised. "We're not running a shell game with the court," I said, pushing the fake aside. He shrugged. "I sleep better with backups." I didn't answer. I was too busy ironing Kaidon's tiny button-down shirt for the hearing, like that alone could earn us mercy. A few days later, at daycare pickup, the teacher pulled me aside holding Kaidon's latest drawing, a stick-figure dinosaur family standing under a crooked rainbow. "He talks about court," she said gently. "He says a judge is going to decide if he gets to keep you." My chest clenched. "I didn't tell him that," I whispered. "Kids hear the walls talk," she replied. I thanked her, folded the picture carefully, and promised myself I'd keep my own walls quieter. Nights leading up to the hearing stretched long. The street stayed restless, cars creeping slow, strangers asking for names they should know. I moved the couch twice so I could see both door and window at the same time. Kaidon started sleeping with the blue stegosaurus clutched to his chest like a badge. I started sleeping lighter than the streetlights hum. One evening, Miss Ellis texted, "Judge likes punctuality and eye contact. Bring proof of income, daycare receipts, medical letter if possible." I stared at that message a long time. Proof of income in my world was a ledger no judge needed to see. I dug out an old legitimate catering gig pay stub, thin paper armor, but better than none.
Kaidon watched me frown at the paperwork and offered his triceratops. He lucky. He's strong. I smiled at the gift of plastic courage. The night before the hearing, I braided my hair tighter than usual, laid out Kaidon's small shoes beside my boots, and set an alarm that rang twice as loud as necessary. Outside, a storm threatened, but only sent wind, enough to rattle the loose gutter like it was warning us to stay ready. I ironed my black blazer for the first time in years, amazed it still fit the woman I was trying to look like. If you're still listening, type court in the comments if you've ever had to prove to strangers you deserve the family you already loved.
The morning of court smelled like starch and rain. Dallas sky pressed low and gray, as if the clouds wanted front-row seats. I dressed Kaiden in the tiny button-down I'd ironed twice for courage. He held both dinosaurs under his arm like bodyguards who didn't own ties. I wore my black blazer, braids pinned back, face bare of everything but the truth I hoped I could tell without shaking. We left the apartment early, so the day couldn't accuse us of being late. Jax drove, said the Charger's growl might keep us from looking like prey. He didn't come inside the courthouse, just parked by the curb and told Kaiden to roar loud if you get nervous. Kaiden gave him a serious nod and promised. I thanked Jax with a look that said more than words. He answered with one small lift of his chin before pulling away. Inside smelled of polished wood and copy machine heat. We passed through the metal detector. Kaiden's dinosaurs triggered a beep that made the guard grin. "They bite?" he asked. Kaiden shook his head solemnly. We checked in at a window where the clerk stapled too many papers together, then sat on a wooden bench under a framed picture of a Texas bluebonnet field, like flowers could fix nerves. Miss Ellis arrived moments later, navy blazer over her polo, hair pulled into a neat bun. She crouched to Kaiden's height. "You ready to tell the judge who you like to live with?" He looked at me first, then whispered, "Her," and pointed at my knee. Miss Ellis smiled like that was enough testimony to win a case. We entered the courtroom, ceiling high enough to hold echoes, walls paneled with dark wood that smelled faintly of lemon oil and old arguments. The judge, a silver-haired black woman with reading glasses perched on the edge of her nose, sat centered behind a desk that looked heavy enough to anchor storms. Her eyes softened a fraction when she saw Kaiden clutching his dinosaurs like holy relics. Proceedings started with routine words that still felt like accusations. Affidavit, petition, custodial status. Miss Ellis presented her report, steady and factual. Safe environment, consistent daycare attendance, guardian cooperative. The judge listened, nodding at intervals as though weighing each word on a kitchen scale. When my turn came, I stood. My palms felt damp enough to water plants. I answered questions straight. Yes, I'd been associated with Marcus. No, I was not legally related to Kaiden. Yes, I understood the responsibility. Yes, I could provide a stable home. Each yes felt like stepping from one stone to the next over a river you couldn't see the bottom of. The judge asked what made me fit to raise the child of the man whose debts once tied me to street business. I didn't flinch. I said because I know exactly what kind of world took his father, and I refuse to let it take him. I've walked that road. I know every ditch in it. I can steer him clear of the holes I fell in. The courtroom went still long enough for the air conditioner to click louder than dignity should allow. The judge looked over her glasses at Kaiden. "Young man, do you like living with India?" He held up his blue stegosaurus like a flag and nodded. "She make pancakes," he announced, then added after a thought, "and she rar good." The judge's mouth twitched upward, almost a smile. "She said sometimes that's half the job," she said gently. The father's side of the gallery was empty. No relatives came forward, no one to claim or contest. The silence in that row felt heavier than testimony. Miss Ellis submitted Kaiden's drawing of the dinosaur family under the rainbow, said it showed a sense of belonging. The judge studied it a moment before returning it carefully, as if art on construction paper carried legal weight. After a pause that tasted like suspense, the judge granted temporary guardianship in my name pending full review in 6 months. She ordered parenting classes, background follow-ups, but her voice carried no malice, to structure. The gavel's single thud felt less like judgment, more like a heartbeat, announcing the start of something still fragile. Outside, sunlight had finally broken through the cloud cover, bouncing off rain puddles in little flashes like encouragement. Jax pulled up, window rolled down. He asked, "We win or we run?" I answered, "We stay." Kaiden raised his dinosaurs out the window so they could feel the wind as we drove off laughing for the first time that day. That night we celebrated with drive-through milkshakes. Kaiden declared chocolate the champion flavor, made me and the dinosaurs agree. Back home, I pinned the court order on the fridge beneath his rainbow dinosaur drawing. For once, the paper on my wall felt like a shield instead of a target. Alone later, after Kaiden fell asleep in his blanket cave, I sat at the table staring at the ledger again, still thick with red ink names. The court might give me guardianship, but the streets still held the debt. I wondered how long I could balance both worlds before one claimed the other. If you're still listening, type "judge" in the comments if you believe sometimes the right person for a child isn't always the one with the perfect past.
A week after the hearing, the sky went bruised purple by mid-afternoon, thunder stalking the horizon like it had unpaid bills. The news warned of a summer storm rolling in from the west. The streets warned of something meaner rolling in from the east. I'd been trying to make the apartment feel more like a home. New curtains from the discount bin, Kaiden's rainbow dinosaur drawing framed in plastic, a real mattress for him instead of the couch cave. But hope is fragile wallpaper when the wall underneath is still cracked. That evening, I heard tires crawl slow past the building, an engine purring too soft to be innocent. I peeked through the blinds, saw the white Escalade idle half a block down, headlights dim like a beast crouching. LaRoe's patience could outweigh the weather. I let the curtain fall and checked the pistol in the bread box just to hear the metal small, honest sound. Kaiden sat cross-legged on the rug, building a new fort out of cereal boxes and toy blocks. "This one's a museum," he announced. "What's in it?" I asked. "Dinosaurs," he said, "but nice ones." I smiled at the idea of gentle prehistoric guards. Thunder cracked loud enough to rattle the dishes. He didn't flinch, just placed the blue stegosaurus at the cardboard gate. "He brave," he explained. "Like you," I said. My phone buzzed. A text from Rico. "Move product or move out the way." I deleted it without answering, but the words sat in my chest like wet sand. Not long after, Jax called. "LaRoe's crew restless. They think the court made you soft." I told him soft ain't the same as stupid. He just said keep your doors locked before hanging up. I stared at the lock like it was brave enough to stop storms. The rain arrived fast. Sheets of water slamming the street, making the neon liquor store sign blur into watercolor streaks. Lightning flashed white on the blinds. Kaiden squealed with delight at every flash. "Sky's taking pictures," he giggled. I wish I could see it that way. Around 9, while thunder rolled steady like distant drums, someone knocked. 3 hard raps that belonged to no neighbor I trusted. I motioned Kaiden into the bedroom and told him it was part of a dinosaur game. Hide in the cave till I say all clear. He obeyed with wide eyes, but no sound. I checked the peephole, found Rico on the landing, hoodie damp from rain, shoulders full of attitude. I cracked the door but left the chain. "It's late," I said flat. "Late for who?" he shot back. "We gotta talk, Queen. You ghosted the hustle." "I got priorities," I replied. His smirk said he thought priorities were luxury items. "Street think you retired. LaRoe think you hiding coin. I think you forgetting who fed you your first stack." I let my silence answer for me. Sometimes silence growls louder than words. A gust of wind shoved rain sideways under the awning, misting both of us. Behind Rico, I noticed a second shape near the stairwell. Shadow tall, umbrella tilted just enough to hide the face. I felt Jack's warning in my bones, crew restless. "Not tonight," I said, voice low but sharp enough to cut wet air. "Tonight," he insisted, leaning closer until the chain between us hummed with tension. "You either get back on or get run over when the wheel turns." I shifted my stance so the door hid my right hand inching toward the bread box gun on the side table. From the bedroom came a muffled roar. Kainan making his stegosaurus guard the cave door. That tiny sound steadied me better than steel. I fixed my eyes on Rico. You walk off this porch now, or you find out how little I care about weather and witnesses. His smirk faltered. He stepped back slow, rain spotting his hoodie darker. Storm's coming, he muttered, retreating toward the stairwell shadow. Already here, I answered. Then shut the door. I double-locked, slid the gun back in the bread box, and sat on the floor by the bedroom door till my breathing matched Kaidan's. When the storm outside thinned to drizzle, I peeked in. He'd fallen asleep mid-guard, Dinosaur still upright at the cardboard gate. I brushed damp curls off his forehead and whispered, brave enough, like a blessing neither of us understood yet. The next morning, sunlight showed the street littered with broken branches and beer cans, two kinds of storms leaving two kinds of debris. I walked Kaidan to daycare through puddles that reflected torn clouds. Miss Ellis called while I waited for the cross signal. She heard about unrest near my block. She said, keep a record of any threats. Courts like paper trails better than stories. I thanked her, wondering if ink could really keep bullets out. That evening, Jack swung by to check the building's hallway cameras. Half of them were fake decoys, but he made it look like they worked. LaRose pushing to test you, he said. He did more than push. I told him about the knock in the stairwell shadow. Jack's jaw clenched, a muscle jumping near his temple. You want me to handle it? I shook my head. We handle Kaidan first. Everything else waits his turn. He gave a short nod, respect showing in silence. That night, the power flickered twice, but no one knocked. I sat near Kaidan's new frame drawing, the dinosaur museum fort under a rainbow, lit by the glow of a cheap candle. I made a promise to the quiet room, to keep this child's world whole, even if mine kept breaking in pieces no court would ever see. If you're still listening, type storm in the comments if you've ever felt trapped between weather outside and threats inside your own walls.
By the end of August, the heat sat on the city like an unwelcome landlord, charging sweat for rent. The storm that rattled our block had blown over, but the streets stayed restless. I'd hung Kaidan's dinosaur drawings along the hallway wall, Rainbow Fort, Museum Cave, a stick figure T-Rex with my braids, trying to convince the apartment that childhood lived here now, but the ledger on the table whispered other names every night. Kaidan was thriving in daycare, counting past 20, learning knock-knock jokes that didn't always land, but always made him laugh first. Some afternoons, I'd catch him at the window waiting for me, dinosaurs lined up like they were on patrol. Seeing him safe behind glass almost fooled me into believing the world had signed a truce. Jax came by one evening with news that ruined the illusion. Rico's moving weight through your old Cedar Crest route, he said, dropping onto my couch like bad news needed a seat. He telling folks you stepped down, left the crown on the curb. I folded Kaidan's clean laundry without answering. You gonna let him run your old lanes? Jax pressed. I don't own lanes anymore. The words tasted strange, like truth trying on borrowed clothes. Later that night, after Kaidan fell asleep mid-story about a dino spaceship, I stepped out to the stairwell just to breathe. Dallas nights carry a soundtrack. Sirens far off, dogs closer, and the low hum of somebody's bass line from a block away. I stared at the skyline glow and wondered if giving up turf made me freer or just easier to corner. The next morning, Miss Ellis called to confirm Kaidan's 6-month review date, 3 months out. She told me the judge would want proof of stable income. I told her I was working on it. She didn't ask how. Hanging up, I studied the court order pinned to the fridge beneath Kaidan's rainbow drawing. Paper wins arguments in daylight. but not always at night. That afternoon at pickup, the daycare teacher mentioned a man had been lingering near the playground fence in a ball cap pulled low. She said didn't cause trouble, just watched a little too long. My stomach went cold. I thanked her, kept my smile steady for Kaidan's sake, and walked him to the car with my hand resting over the pistol hidden in my bag. Jax and I met that night at a 24-hour taco spot off Jefferson. Neon sign buzzed like a hornet. The air smelt of grease and cumin. We sat in a corner booth under a mural of a cartoon sombrero that had seen better paint. "You need a plan before Laro writes it for you," he warned. "My plan is stay clean till the review hearing's done," I answered. "Clean don't scare wolves," he muttered, tearing a tortilla in half. A group of young hustlers came in loud, Rico among them. He spotted me, grinned like a man rehearsing disrespect, and sauntered over. "Look who left the throne for daycare duty," he mocked. I stayed seated, eyes level. "Daycare beats court dates," I replied. His grin sharpened. "Streets miss you, Queen. Don't let them replace you before you even cold." Jax shifted in his seat, but I touched his wrist lightly, signal to hold. "I tell the streets I'm retired," I said. Rico leaned in just enough for his chain to swing. "Retirement only real if you live long enough," he hissed, and then laughed at his own threat, and left with his crew. The tension rode back with me to the apartment like an unwelcome passenger. I locked doors twice, checked Kaidan asleep in his bed, still clutching the blue stegosaurus we found at the flea market. I sat on the couch in the dark, tracing the ridges of the dinosaur he'd left on the coffee table. For the first time in years, I caught myself whispering an actual prayer. Not for money, not for revenge, just for a quiet tomorrow. The next day, Kaidan's daycare held a family story time event. I showed up in jeans and a clean white tee, feeling almost normal among other parents with juice pouches and picture books. Kaidan sat in my lap, pointing out dinosaurs in every story, proud to announce that his guardian could roar better than the teachers. His laughter filled a space in me I didn't know was empty. That evening, while Kaidan was napping, Jax texted, "Escalade sighted near 10th Street, heads up." I closed the blinds without peeking out. Sometimes eye contact feeds predators. I spent the rest of the night sorting receipts, daycare bills, and the old catering pay stub for the judge, building a paper shield one flimsy sheet at a time. Near midnight, the hallway echoed with footsteps, slow, deliberate, pausing outside my door. I held my breath, pistol hidden beneath a couch cushion. The steps moved on after a minute, but the adrenaline stayed. I realized I'd been living as if war was temporary. Tonight taught me peace was the temporary thing. When the apartment finally went still, I stood at Kaidan's doorway watching him sleep. His curls were damp from the humid night. His tiny chest rose and fell in steady rhythm under the glow-in-the-dark dino blanket we'd found at the flea market. I thought about Marcus, his last words in that alley, the weight of the promise he left behind. For the first time, I admitted to myself that promise had changed me more than any threat could. If you're still listening, type promise in the comments if you've ever had to keep a vow that reshaped your whole life. The Texas summer finally broke in September, trading triple-digit heat for mornings cool enough to open a window. I stood at that window one dawn with a coffee mug warm in my fingers and watched Kaidan chase the blue stegosaurus across the living room rug. His laughter carried the kind of peace the streets never bothered to sell. For the first time in months, I believed maybe we could outlive the ledger. Miss Ellis called to confirm the 6-month review hearing, 3 weeks out. "Judge just needs proof you stayed on track," she said. I had the daycare receipts stacked in an envelope, catering pay stub paper clipped on top, and Kaidon's rainbow drawings tucked in back as my unofficial evidence of stability. She told me, "Whatever you do, keep your head down till then." I promised, meaning it, though promises have a way of getting tested. Jack stopped by that evening with a used bookshelf for Kaidon's toys. "Kid deserves his own kingdom," he said, setting it against the wall. He looked tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix, eyes scanning the window before he left. Jack's been quiet. Leroux been quiet. Too quiet. Quiet in our world was never comfort. It was rehearsal. 2 nights later, quiet ended. We just finished dinner, mac and cheese for Kaidon, black coffee for me, when headlights swept slow across the blinds. A car idled out front, motor low, patient. My phone lit with a message from an unknown number. Last chance to pay what he owed. I deleted it, shut off the lamp, and told Kaidon it was movie night in the cave. He gathered both dinosaurs and crawled under the blanket fort without complaint, whispering to them about staying brave. At midnight, the door rattled, gentle at first, then harder, like a hand arguing with the lock. I raised the pistol from the bread box, heart thudding against ribs that felt too thin. Through the peephole, I caught Rico's face, wet with rain, grin gone. Beside him stood one of Leroux's new muscle, big man with a scar like a comma on his cheek. I spoke through the door. "You forgot how to knock polite." Rico leaned close enough his breath fogged the glass. "Debt's due, Queen. No more extensions." I shot back. "Debt died with Marcus." The big man shifted his weight like punctuation. Thunder cracked outside as if the sky wanted to object. I thumbed the safety off but kept my voice even. "You leave now, or I call the badge and hand them your names gift-wrapped." Rico sneered but stepped back a fraction. "You got teeth now 'cause the court gave you papers? Paper don't stop bullets." Before I could answer, Jax's Charger rolled up the block, headlights washing the porch bright. The men exchanged a look, then retreated to their car, tires spitting water as they pulled away. I locked the door again, breathing slow until the air felt safe enough to swallow. Next morning, I walked Kaidon to daycare beneath a rinsed, clean sky. He skipped puddles holding my hand and told me dinosaurs hated thunder, but loved rainbows. I promised him pancakes for dinner if he listened to his teachers. That small routine felt like a victory bigger than money. The night before the review hearing, I found Marcus's cracked phone again in the kitchen drawer. I hadn't opened its gallery in months. One short video showed him sitting on a park bench, Kaidon at barely 2, wobbling around in the grass. Marcus was laughing, real laughter, unarmored, telling the boy, "One day you gonna be better than me." I stared at the frozen frame after it ended, hearing his last words in the alley echo the same wish. Raise my son better than me. In court the next day, the judge reviewed Miss Ellis's updated report: stable home, consistent daycare, pending parenting class certificate. She asked Kaidon how he liked his room. He proudly described the bookshelf as his dinosaur hotel. The judge smiled and granted full legal guardianship in my name. Her gavel's thud felt different this time, like the sound of a door closing on the past. That night, we celebrated with pancakes the size of Kaidon's dinosaurs, eaten in the blanket fort under string lights Jax had surprised us with. Kaidon fell asleep mid-story, syrup on his cheek, holding the blue stegosaurus in one hand and the court order folded like treasure under the other. I tucked the paper into a folder later, filed it beside the rainbow drawing on the fridge. For the first time, the fridge looked like it belonged to a home. When the house was quiet, I stepped out onto the porch. Cool night air brushing my face. Dallas skyline glittered distant but patient. I whispered into the dark, not sure if it was prayer or confession. I did what you asked, Marcus. I raised him better than us. The wind carried the words off like it knew where to deliver them. From savage to saved. If you think God can still save, say amen. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and thank you for listening to my story.